welcome to a short review over acids and bases in the pH scale. First, before we can talk about what an acid is and what a base is, we have to look at two important ions, the hydrogen ion and the hydroxide ion. A hydrogen ion is going to be a hydrogen that has lost an electron and has a positive charge, and that's actually the definition of an ion. It's just a molecule or atom that has a positive or negative charge on it. So in this case, our hydrogen ions have a positive charge. The other important ion we need to know is called a hydroxide ion, and it is going to be an oxygen and hydrogen bonded together for a molecule, and it's going to have a slightly negative charge because it has stolen an electron. So again, hydrogen ions positive, hydroxide ions are negative. So what exactly is an acid? Well, an acid is a solution that have excess of hydrogen ions in them. And these are going to be compounds that when they break apart in water, they leave these hydrogen ions in the solution. And if you look down at the very top of my diagram down here, it gives an example of this. So we have a molecule here, and attached to this molecule is a hydrogen ion. Well, when this gets put in water, because of the water's polarity, it's going to be able to pull that molecule apart, and it's going to leave a lot of these hydrogen ions in the solution. A base is going to have that same process, but instead of pulling hydrogen ions off, it's going to pull the hydroxide ions off. So again, we have our hydroxide right here, this OH negative. It's attached to some other part of a molecule, and when it gets put in water, it's going to break, the water will help break this apart, and it's going to leave a lot of these hydroxide ions in the water. Another word for a base is alkali or alkaline. Well, what is the pH scale? A pH scale is going to measure how acidic or basic a solution is. When we look at the pH scale, though, all we're actually measuring is the hydrogen ions. And it's kind of weird how we get this pH scale, and I'm not going to go into the detail on that because you don't really need to know it until you get into your chemistry class. But it is important to note that something that has a lot of hydrogen atoms, or ions, is going to be very low on the pH scale. It's going to actually have a smaller number. On the flip side of that, if there's not a lot of hydrogen atoms, that means that there's probably a lot of OHs instead, and so it's going to be a very high number on the pH scale. But again, the only thing we're really measuring are the hydrogen ions. So a couple of terms that you're going to want to know. A strong acid is anything that is very low on the pH scale, below 4, 0 to 4. A strong base is anything that's very high, from 10 to 14. A weak acid is an acid that only partially ionizes in an aqueous solution. And what this means is that the molecule is only going to break apart, only some of those molecules will break apart. And that doesn't leave very many hydrogens in the water, and so it's going to have a pH close to 7. 7 is going to be neutral, by the way, so it's going to have a pH from 3 to 6. A weak base is going to only partially ionize in an aqueous solution. Aqueous meaning water, by the way. So what that means is that those molecules are just not very many of them are actually going to break apart, which means we won't have as many OH or hydroxide ions in the water. And that's going to leave us with a pH close to 7 again, which is neutral, around 8 to 10. A neutral solution is anything that has a pH of 7. It's not considered acidic or basic. So here's a look at the pH scale, just so you guys can get an idea of what some common things that you might see are as far as being acidic or basic. So let's look right here at 7 first. This is neutral, meaning it doesn't have a lot of hydrogen ions or a lot of OH ions or hydroxide ions in the solution. Water is very close to 7 on the pH scale. Moving in the acidic direction, we'll have things like fruit, bananas, apples, lemons are actually very acidic. We also have vinegar on this side. Tomatoes, milk is actually a little acidic. On the other side, we have things like baking soda. Your blood is slightly basic. We have soap, we have ammonia, And over here at the very end, we have drain cleaner. So this gives you an idea. Remember, alkali is basic, so this is our basic N. This gives you an idea of just some common things that you might see on the pH scale. And just again, something to remember is that 7 is neutral, and when we go down in number, that means we're going up in the amount of hydrogen ions in the solution. And when we go up in number, that actually means we're going down in the number of hydrogen ions in the solution, and that's what we actually measure on the pH scale. But it's also important to note that if we're going down in the number of hydrogen ions, that means that we are going to see an increase in the number of hydroxide ions. And this pretty much wraps up your lesson over acids and bases and the pH scale. If you guys have any questions, be sure to reach out to me. Thank you.